Hello everyone, welcome to Study IQ. My name is Dr. Mahipal Singh Rathod, and in this video I will be discussing the Sri Lankan Civil War with you. The Sri Lankan Civil War was a brutal armed conflict which was fought for 26 years in the island nation of Sri Lanka. It was fought between LTTE, that is the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, and the Sri Lankan government and its army. Okay. So what do you mean by this Eelam? First of all, Eelam means a nation or a separate country or an area that was required for Tamil people, and for that the people who were fighting, they were called Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. LTT, it was the largest armed group which was designated as terrorist group by 32 countries of the world, but they said that we are fighting against the government and we are not terrorists like Osama bin Laden or Al-Qaeda. In 2009 this LTT was completely defeated and the civil war was finished. Now what is the background to the origins of this conflict? So you need to understand that in Sri Lanka, there are two major ethnic groups. The first one is Sinhalese and the second one is Tamil. So these Sinhalese people, they are found in the south and the central region of the country. They are mainly Buddhist. They follow the Theravada school of Buddhism. There are three schools, you must know them, the names at least: Mahayana, Heenan and Theravada. Theravada also is called the Southern Buddhism. It is followed in countries like Thailand, Sri Lanka and Myanmar. The language that is spoken by them is Sinhala, and they are around 70 to 75% of the population, so they are the majority. Then there are the Tamils. So the Tamils are found in the north and the eastern parts of the country. They are mainly Hindus and they speak the Tamil language. That is why they are called Tamils, and they are around 15%, so they are a minority. Apart from that, there is also a 10% Muslim minority in Sri Lanka. So this is a map from the 2011 census. So all the violet or the blue colored regions that you see, they are the Sinhala majority areas, and here in the north that you see, the red colored area, they are the Tamil areas, and here also the eastern area, these are also Tamil area. See, many of the Muslim people also speak Tamil. The people staying in these northern, the green colored areas that you see, they are actually based on religion. But the Muslims staying in these eastern and northern area, they also speak Tamil language only. So you can say that this entire region is Tamil speaking, and the southern one is Sinhala speaking. Now historically also the northern and the eastern part, at least the northern part, that has been always dominated by a kingdom. Initially it was a Jaffna kingdom was there. Okay, then in the southern part there was a Sinhala kingdom which was there was a kingdom of Kandy. These are not the only kingdoms, okay? I'm just trying to give you a historical context here. So now these Jaffna rulers, they were Hindu. The majority religion here in this area was Hinduism. They followed the Tamil language, culture, everything was similar to the Tamil people of Tamil Nadu in India. There were similarities, obviously they were not exactly the same. And also in southern region, the majority religion was historically Buddhism, the language was Sinhala, and the kingdoms were mainly called Sinhala kingdoms, and so on. So historically there have been two ethnicities in Sri Lanka. Okay, so it might seem to you that okay, this is just one small island, but no, it is not like that. There are two major divisions that have been there since many centuries. But under the British rule, this entire island was controlled by one government. So the policies of colonial times, but the British policies, wherever there is conflict in the world, you can take a wild guess that the British were involved somehow. So you can say Israel, Palestine, or India, Pakistan, the conflict of Kashmir, they all have a legacy of British involvement. The reason for that is that the British Empire was very large. It was almost 25% of the entire world at one point of time. And when they left, they did not care about how the ethnicities of that area, the different religious or ethnic groups will solve the problems. And while they were there, they did not care about the ethnic or the religious groups. All they wanted to do was have a stable rule. So they followed any policy which even divided the people of that area. It did not matter to them. Just like in India, there was communal representation in Sri Lanka as well. The Tamils, the Sinhala and the Muslims were given different representative seats on the legislative executive councils of the British rule. And also one of the major reasons for this conflict, the background to this, is that the Tamils have been historically, since the British time, okay, not historically, since the British times, they have a very high representation in the government service, that is the civil service, in both the higher and the lower posts. The reason for that is education. Now see, they were well educated since the early part of 19th century, because many Tamil schools and education societies were opened by the Tamil people in northern Sri Lanka, and also many missionary schools were opened up by the missionaries in that region. So they had good education levels before the Sinhala people. Sinhalese people were not that much developed in education. There was a wider difference between the education levels, and so they had more jobs, they had more representation in the government. So the Tamils were very much dominant during the British rule. Although they were just 15% of the population, but they completely dominated the government service of the entire Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka got independence in 1948, and they adopted a parliamentary democracy just like India. Now in parliamentary democracy, there is a majoritarian rule. It means that whichever party has the majority, they will have the power to frame all the laws. So they can make whatever laws and rules they want. In this system, Tamils could never gain majority in this system, because Tamils are only 15% of the population. So at max, they can have 15% representation in the parliament. Now see, this parliamentary democracy has been very successful in England. Why? Because the population of UK is mostly homogeneous. They have just one religion, one type of people, everyone is white Caucasian. But in Asia and Africa, this parliamentary democracy has some flaws in it. Why? Because here in Asia and African societies, religion and ethnicity, it plays a big role, okay, in the day-to-day society and life and the rule of the country. So this religious and everyone cannot be represented in this parliamentary democracy. If someone is just 5% of the population, it is not necessary that they get any seats. I'll give you one small example. In the 2014 general elections in India, 4% of the total votes was garnered by BSP. So it is quite a lot. If you see, national level, BSP got 4% of the total votes in India. But how many seats did they get in Lok Sabha? Zero, none. Why? Because their votes were not at one place, not in one seat. So this is the flaw of parliamentary democracy, and this has been a major challenge for all African and Asian and developing societies, wherever these things are important, like religion and ethnicity. So similar thing is there in Sri Lanka, India, and other such countries. So after independence, the Sinhala parties, obviously they came to power because they were in majority, and they tried to bring in laws that would bridge the difference in education and jobs. So they wanted to bring Sinhala people in jobs and education at par with the Tamils. So they made policies favoring them. One of the first such acts was that the Sinhala language was made the only official language in 1956. Up till then, English was the official language. All the work was done in English. So Tamil people who spoke very good English, they could get good jobs in the government. But suddenly, all of a sudden, one day they were told that now you do not know Sinhala, so you have to resign from your job. So many Tamils were made to resign from the jobs, and also now no one suddenly in 1 month or 2 months, a Tamil student who is in a college and who is about to get a job, how will he learn Sinhala in one day? So obviously no new jobs, and the old ones also went away. Then by the time late 1960s and 70s, some other laws were brought in, like this college education one, that restricted the entry for Tamils. And what the government said, that Tamils are there disproportionate to their population in the colleges, in higher education. What does it mean? That see, in most of the colleges, despite being just 15% of the population, there were around 80-70% Tamils in colleges. So now the government wanted Sinhalas to be in the college, so they restricted the entry for Tamils by bringing in different entry marks, entry cutoffs were changed, and this led to a lot of Tamil boys and girls who could not enter college. Now imagine if you are a student who has just passed his school, and even despite being a good or an average student, you could not get into any college. So this will lead to some dissatisfaction, and this is why the political activism and violence rose. Okay, the boys who could not go to college, many of those joined the armed groups that were formed in the 70s. Tamil media and Tamil literature was banned, and confrontational politics began. See, there were many Tamil parties. Okay, these Tamil parties, they were protesting. It was not like that they were not protesting these laws, but they were protesting via satyagraha. They were non-violent. Okay, they were not taking weapons directly and fighting against like LTTE today. No. But at that time, the confrontational politics began, and also these things led to riots many times. There were large-scale riots in 56, 58, 77, 83. So you can understand the kind of atmosphere that was generated in the next 20 years after independence. So in such circumstances of discriminatory policies, armed groups started forming in 1970s. Many armed groups were formed, and LTTE was just one of them. It was not that much dominant. It was formed in 1976 actually, not 72. Okay, so there were around 20-25 groups, armed groups were formed, and LTTE was just one of them. But later, by 1987, it became the most dominant one. It actually fought against the other Tamil groups, the Tamil armed groups, and it decimated all of them. And some of them joined LTTE, and some of them were removed by LTTE themselves. On the other hand, parties like Tamil National Alliance, the TNA, they were carrying on their political dissent. What they demanded was that we want autonomy for the Tamil areas. What were the Tamil areas? The north and the eastern regions of the countries that I showed you in the map. Till now, they were just wanting that give us equality, recognize the Tamil language, give us jobs. But now, no. Now, in 1970s, they started demanding for autonomy. Okay. And there was a large Tamil diaspora which supported and funded these Tamil political and armed groups. What do you mean by diaspora? That is the people who are living outside Sri Lanka. Okay, so Tamil diaspora is present in Canada, Singapore, and many other countries. But in Canada and Singapore, it is very big and strong. So they started funding these political parties and armed groups. So armed groups, obviously, it was covert funding, not overt funding. The most important armed group was LTTE. I'll just give you a few points about LTTE just to give you a context. Okay, I do not want to glorify any kind of organization that took up violence, but still we need to know it. So the leader of LTTE was Vellupillai Prabhakaran. He was the founder of LTTE. LTTE was very ideology driven. Okay, its cadres were so much ideology driven that they were given a cyanide capsule by Prabhakaran, and he said that if you are ever arrested, instead of getting arrested, just take this cyanide pill and commit suicide. So this is the level of ideology that was driving these LTTE fighters. And they were secessionist. It means they wanted a separate country, no autonomy. Autonomy was demanded by the political parties. They said we want Tamil Eelam. That is why their name is Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. And their symbol was this tiger. Okay, this tiger is derived from the Chol dynasty of the 10th and the 11th centuries of India. They were very organized. Discipline was very good. You can see in this photograph their training was up to the mark, as good as any army unit, and they wore uniforms. And this is Vellupillai Prabhakaran, and they had different wings, and they also recruited many women. They also recruited children actually, but the women fighters were sent to fight on the front lines. Later on, after 1987, they started suicide bombings at a large scale. Okay, they killed many Tamil liberals as well. It means liberals are those people who were against violence. They said that no, we should talk with the Tamil government, not fight with them. I'm sorry, not the Tamil government. We should talk with the Sri Lankan government and not fight with them. So they killed such people. There were many political leaders who were against LTTE, who were in favor of talks, who were also sometimes in favor of other groups, the other groups that were formed. So LTTE started assassinating them as well. It said that no, if we are minority, we cannot have 20 groups representing us. We should have just one group, and that will be LTTE. So they fought against those armed groups. They sometimes took over them, and they killed many political Tamil liberal leaders also. By the 1990s, they started running a shadow government in north and east regions of the country. What do you mean by shadow government? They had control over that area, so the Sri Lankan government did not have its machinery working. Now the shadow government means this LTTE had its own court, its own police, even their own bank, and other civil machinery. Do you understand? Like they were running a civil government despite being a terrorist group or despite being a secessionist group. Now here, see, 32 countries had called them a terrorist group. Okay, 32 countries labeled them as a terrorist group. They had a navy and air force wings too. It is probably only terrorist organization in the world, or an only extremist organization in the world that had its own air force. They had 4 to 6 aeroplanes, I guess, and their navy was pretty strong. They had many boats, as you could have seen in those areas. They controlled a large coastline, and they used their boats very effectively, smuggling weapons, smuggling arms, and other smuggling operations. So they assassinated two major head of states. One of them was Ranasinghe Premadasa in 1993. He was a Sri Lankan president, and the second one was the ex-Prime Minister of India, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, in 1991. This is Premadasa, and this is Rajiv Gandhi minutes before he was assassinated by this woman, who came in and she garlanded him with a huge garland, and that was a bomb inside the flowers that exploded and killed Rajiv Gandhi instantly. Many cabinet members of the Sri Lankan government have also been assassinated. Around 7 members have been assassinated. Apart from that, they have carried on out bombings in civilian areas, even Buddhist temples, and many other public places, leading to many civilian deaths. LTTE is the only organization in the world which has assassinated 2 head of states of different countries. Okay, I don't think there is any other terrorist organization that has been able to do this. So now we come to the civil war, the actual fighting. They are called the Elam Wars, and there are 4 phases of this war. So they are called first Elam War, second Elam War, and so on. But it is not important for us. It is just a classification for people to put divide the phases. So you need to remember this: 1983 to 2009. That's it. So around 26 years the war was fought. So the first phase began in 1983. Why? Because 13 Sri Lankan army soldiers were killed by LTTE. They were ambushed and killed. And against this action, riots broke out in the entire Sri Lanka, and around 1,000 to 3,000 Tamils were killed in these riots. After these riots, LTTE started fighting, and the Sri Lankan government sent its army, and thus large-scale war broke out. See, before this, the groups were active, but before this 1983, they were just carrying out small attacks, and like they killed the mayor of Jaffna in 78. And such small attacks were carried out, but large-scale fighting broke out in 83. Now I will talk about the Indian involvement in all this. See, from 1983 to 87, this is 87, not 97, the Indian government was supporting these Tamil armed groups. Okay, RAW was training LTTE and other groups in India. So even Prabhakaran once came to India and he saw the training camps. So for 4 years, India was supporting LTTE. Also in the southern part of India, in Tamil Nadu, the political parties, the Dravid political parties like DMK and AIADMK, they were in favor of ethnic Tamils. Also some other parties were also in their favor. Although DMK and AIADMK are mainstream parties, so they were not overtly in favor of terrorism. But yes, they supported the separate good demand of autonomy for Tamils. They demanded justice for Tamils of North Sri Lanka. Why? Because Indian Tamils and Sri Lankan Tamils have long-standing cultural ties. Okay, there have been long cultural ties. The language is similar, and there are many other cultural linkages, and so they often helped the cause of Tamil groups. It is said that MGR, the then Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, he even let some ships pass through the Chennai port which were going to supply LTTE. Although this was all covert, and there is no evidence of this, but it was said that such help was given by the Tamil parties. So you can see that the mood was in favor of Tamil, helping the Tamil groups, and the Indian central government also was helping the Tamil groups until 87. But in 87 something happened. Sri Lankan government asked India that stop helping LTTE, come and let's sign a peace agreement. So in July 1987, Rajiv Gandhi, who was the Prime Minister then, and J.R. Jayawardene, the Sri Lankan President, they signed the India-Sri Lanka Peace Accord. Now you might think that there is no war between India and Sri Lanka. Why are they signing a peace accord? The war is between Sri Lanka and LTTE. Okay, so this is what even LTTE said, that don't sign on behalf of us. But the other Tamil organizations, they were in favor of India, and they all accepted the demand. They all accepted the concessions and this Indian-Sri Lanka peace accord. Now what was the concessions given? So according to this peace accord, Tamil language was recognized. Then devolution of powers to provinces. It means the state government will become more powerful. Then India said that merge the north and eastern province where Tamils are in majority, so that it becomes one state, and you can give some kind of autonomy or some kind of powers to them, with some kind of special powers to them. But this was not accepted later on. Initially it was said that we will do this, but there was a referendum proposed which never happened. Then Indian peacekeeping force was to be sent so that peace can be kept between LTTE and other Tamil groups and the Sri Lankan government. So these were the main points of the Indian-Sri Lankan Peace Accord. The Sri Lankan government amended its constitution, and it is called the 13th Amendment, to give all these concessions. Okay, so this is very important. Remember this 13th Amendment. This is the Indian peacekeeping forces in Sri Lanka in 1987. Now, as I said, that the most of the Tamil armed groups, they accepted this peace deal and they laid down their weapons, except LTTE. Now, the Indian peacekeeping forces, when they arrived in Sri Lanka, the name of the operation was Operation Pavan. Okay, this can be asked sometimes as a trivial GK question. So if you can remember this. So when the Indian IPKF, Indian peacekeeping forces, they arrived in Jaffna, the northern city of Sri Lanka. They cleared Jaffna of LTTE. They drove LTTE out of Jaffna. They had initial victories, but the LTTE just simply moved into the jungles and later they attacked again. So they had some victories, but from 87 to 90, for 3 years, the IPKF were there. They could only majorly win the city, the urban area. Okay. By 1990, the public opinion turned against these Indian forces. So the people of South Sri Lanka, that is the Sinhala people, they forced their own government to ask India to withdraw its forces. Why? They asked, what is Indian army doing on our soil, our Sri Lankan soil? So that is why the opinion turned against them. Also, the Tamils were also not favoring them. The Tamil civilians said that we are caught in this crossfire between Indian army and LTT, so that even the northern Tamil people were saying to the government that please ask the Indian army to leave. So by 1990, Indian army withdrew. Another reason was that in India, Rajiv Gandhi had lost the elections in 1989 and he was no longer the prime minister. Okay, VP Singh became the prime minister and he withdrew the forces. But again in 1991, elections were to be held, and this time it was thought that Rajiv Gandhi might win, Congress will come to power again, and if they come, LTT thought that Rajiv Gandhi will send the peacekeeping forces again. This is the reason that they assassinated him. So this was the end of Indian intervention in Sri Lanka. After this, in 1990s, the war continued. Second and third phases of the war were fought in 1990s. There was the attempt on life of Prime Minister Chandrika Kumartunga in 1999. She barely escaped, and she also had her right eye was damaged and she still can't see from that eye till today. Also, the President Prem Dasa was assassinated in 93. So you can see one was assassinated and another was almost assassinated. So are you seeing how big attacks they are planning? Apart from these, there were many other suicide attacks against government officers and other ministers. It was not that the government was not trying to make peace efforts with LTTE. They tried, many times they tried, but all the peace efforts failed. In fact, whenever there was these peace talks were going on, LTT used that time of ceasefire when the talks were going on, they used that time to rearm them. They brought in more weapons and recruit more fighters. Okay. So, suddenly one day they would just say that no, we are not talking anymore. The peace efforts are failing, and suddenly they will start the war again, and they are more stronger and they have more people. So this was the strategy that LTT followed. Prabhakaran very famously once said that on our road to Tamil Elam, that is independence, these peace talks are just steps. So he did not believe in this peace process. He did not believe that this peace process can achieve something. No. He said that the ultimate goal is Tamil Elam, and these peace processes are just steps in between. So now we arrive to the 2000s, the 21st century, and the attacks of 9/11 happened in 2001. Soon after that, USA launched its war on terror, under which it supported all the governments against any kind of non-state actors or terrorist organization that it deemed threatening. So this war on terror by USA, this affected LTT as well. Although LTT said, Prabhakaran famously said that Osama bin Laden is a terrorist and he is attacking because of religion. We are not like that. We are fighting a war for the rights of Tamil people. We are fighting for the rights of people against a government, and our cause is different. We are not fighting for religion or such kind of things. So we are different from those terrorists. This is what Prabhakaran said. But anyways, whatever the case, USA supported the Sri Lankan government in its efforts against the LTT. So finally LTT came to the table and they started another negotiation. This time Norway mediated the peace process. Okay, Norway has mediated many peace processes throughout the world in African countries and Asian countries between such kind of non-state actors like LTT. So in 2002, a ceasefire agreement was signed between LTT and government, and this stopped the hostilities for some time. What they agreed to was that we will discuss a federal solution. This was the basic gist of the 2002 agreement. They said that for now, we will stop hostilities and we will try to find a federal solution to the political problem. What do you mean by federal solution? It means that LTTE dropped their demand for an independent state and they said that we will take a autonomous state. And Sri Lankan government was also against this federal solution earlier. They said that no, we won't give any special powers. But for the first time, they also said that okay, we are open for talks on this federal solution. So for the next 2-3 years, talks went on over this federal solution, but ultimately these talks failed. Why? Because of 2-3 things. Firstly, this ceasefire did not hold. On ground, in reality, the fighting was still going on. It is said that the ceasefire agreement was broken down around 10,000 times. LTTE said that the army is breaking the ceasefire agreement, they are firing. The army said that the LTTE fighters are firing, they are keeping the fight going on, not us, and so on. Also in 2004, a major split occurred in LTTE. This person, a very high level leader of LTTE called Karuna, he defected. He left LTTE. He was the leader of the eastern forces in the eastern territory. So he defected from the LTTE. He left Prabhakaran. And another thing that happened was in 2004, there was a tsunami. In December 2004, it killed around 35,000 people in Sri Lanka. And if I see, this is a very rough map of Sri Lanka. So this northern and eastern area, eastern and northern coast of Sri Lanka was very heavily affected by this tsunami. And this is the area of LTTE. This is where LTTE is very dominating. They had their shadow government running here. So LTTE said that whatever aid is coming from foreign, whatever money is coming for the reconstruction of these tsunami areas, government is not giving it to us. Government is using all the money coming for and giving nothing. They are not giving us anything. Instead, they are using it against us. So this was also a major cause for the talks to fail. So after such things, the Elam War, fourth phase started of this Elam War. It is called Elam War 4. It is the continuation of the civil war. In 2005, a new president was elected. His name was Mahinda Rajpaksha. And in 2005, LTT assassinated the foreign minister of Sri Lanka. This foreign minister was a Tamil. He was an ethnic Tamil and he was against LTT. He said that no, this violence is not required. So as I told you earlier, they had assassinated many liberal leaders and they assassinated him as well at his home. So this turned all the major world powers who were trying to negotiate, it turned the mood against LTT. And in early 2006, hostilities resumed again. The fighting started again. And in 2007 and 8, it escalated. And by 2009 May, the Sri Lankan army finally captured the last LTT fighters. See, entire 2008, the fighting was going on. First, they conquered the eastern area, then they conquered the northern area. Finally, around Kilinochchi was the administrative capital of LTTE from where they operated. So finally, around Kilinochchi, the last of the LTT fighters were killed. Prabhakaran was also killed somewhere near Kilinochchi on 18th May, I think. And on 18th May, finally, this war was over. After the war, the Sri Lankan government appointed the Lessons Learnt and Reconciliation Commission, or the LLRC. Very important. This is in news since past many years. You might have seen the name in newspapers if you are going through the current affairs or newspapers. It was constituted by the government to look into the claims of civilian atrocities and other war crimes by the army during the war, especially the last phase of the war around Kilinochchi. See, the army said that when civilians were fleeing the war, many Tamil people in the area, they were displaced from their homes. There were thousands and thousands of people displaced from their home because there was fighting going on around their homes. So they started and let's say this area was designated by the government that okay, civilians can come here. This was a beach where civilians can come and stay in tents. They can stay here. There will be no fighting. There will be no firing by the government army here. But what happened was then LTT fighters also came in between the civilians. These LTT fighters were there. So the LTT fighters did not let these people go. They said that no, civilians have to surround us. They forcibly asked the civilians to stay here. And on the other hand, the government, because the LTT fighters were there, they started firing here, they shelled these places, artillery shelling was done, and so many civilians died. Such things happened during the end of the war, and it is said that both the sides, the LTTE was also at fault. Why? Because you can see they are not letting the civilians go, and the government is also at fault, army is also at fault, because they are firing upon civilians. So war crimes and atrocities by both the sides. There were 1 lakh civilian deaths in this entire civil war. The number might seem very low to you, but consider this: the population of Sri Lanka is not very much. In that, 1 lakh civilian deaths are quite a lot. And around the Sri Lankan army says that around 5,500 soldiers have died, and there is no count of LTTE fighters who died in this war. So this is the end of the topic. I hope you understood. I'll ask you one question. If you know, please write down in comments. The current president of Sri Lanka, who was elected in 2001, Mahinda Rajapaksa, was defeated and someone new became the president. Who was he? Tell me his name. If you like our videos, kindly like, share and subscribe. Thank you. Have a good day.